Ethan Callaway had mastered the art of control. As the CEO of one of New York's fastest-growing tech firms, he orchestrated billion-dollar deals with precision, outpaced competitors with sheer brilliance, and navigated boardrooms with the confidence of a man who rarely made mistakes. But that Monday morning, standing in front of a red brick school he barely remembered enrolling his daughter in, he realized he'd made a colossal one. His 7-year-old daughter, Sophie, wide-eyed, clutching her backpack with quiet uncertainty, looked up at him, trusting and patient. She didn't complain when he kissed her forehead, waved goodbye, and hurried off to a conference call. It wasn't until 3 hours later, while scrolling through an inbox stuffed with unread emails, that his assistant's frantic message came through. "Mr. Callaway, I just confirmed, Sophie was meant to start at Crestfield Academy, not Brookside Elementary." Ethan's stomach dropped. Brookside, the small, public school on the other side of town, not the elite private institution he'd meticulously chosen for her. In his rush, in his endless juggling of deadlines, he had sent his daughter to the wrong place. And worse, he'd left her there. Panicked, guilt-ridden, and uncharacteristically flustered, Ethan abandoned his meeting, hailed a cab, and sped across town. He rehearsed apologies in his mind, bracing himself to explain to Sophie that she wouldn't be staying long, that her real school was waiting, polished and perfect. But when he arrived at Brookside's worn front steps, something unexpected stopped him. Through the glass doors, in a sunlit classroom painted with soft blues and hand-drawn rainbows, he saw Sophie. She was smiling. Genuinely smiling, a brightness he hadn't seen in weeks since her mother's passing. Sitting cross-legged on a colorful rug, surrounded by laughing children, Sophie was engaged in an animated discussion about planets and stars. Standing beside her, leading the discussion with a warmth that radiated across the room, was a young woman with chestnut-brown curls and kind, intelligent eyes. Her name, as Ethan would soon learn, was Claire Bennett, a second-grade teacher whose reputation in the neighborhood was as beloved as it was understated. Claire wasn't just teaching, she was listening, encouraging, igniting curiosity in every child around her. And Sophie, quiet, guarded Sophie, was leaning forward eagerly, her grief momentarily eclipsed by wonder. Ethan hesitated. His instinct was to interrupt, to correct his mistake. But something made him pause. He watched, unseen, as Claire knelt next to Sophie, gently adjusting her worksheet and asking her questions that made her beam with pride. No sterile halls, no pressured academic rigor, just kindness, patience, and a quiet magic Ethan hadn't realized his daughter needed. "I thought you might be Sophie's dad," Claire's voice startled him moments later as he lingered awkwardly in the doorway. She smiled warmly, extending her hand. "She's wonderful. We're lucky to have her here." "I made a mistake," Ethan admitted, running a hand through his neatly combed hair. "She wasn't supposed to be here. I enrolled her at Crestfield. I guess, I mixed up the addresses." Claire's gaze softened. "Well, sometimes life puts us where we're meant to be, not where we planned to be." Over the next few days, what was meant to be a quick correction became an unexpected turning point. Sophie, to Ethan's surprise, didn't want to leave Brookside. Each afternoon she recounted stories of science experiments, music class sing-alongs, and playground adventures. Her eyes sparkled in a way that tugged at Ethan's heart, reminding him of a time before grief clouded their world. Driven by curiosity, and perhaps something deeper he wasn't ready to admit, Ethan found himself visiting the school more often. He'd leave work early to catch glimpses of Sophie's projects or to chat briefly with Claire, who, with gentle sincerity, began to ask Ethan questions no one had dared ask in months. "How are you really holding up? What does Sophie need most right now? How are you both healing?" Their conversation stretched longer each time. Ethan, whose days had been a blur of metrics and mergers, found solace in Claire's quiet wisdom and selflessness. She spoke of her own journey, a childhood marked by loss, the teachers who saved her, and the reason she chose a career that rarely made headlines but changed lives. Slowly, without fanfare, she became a steady presence in both Sophie's and Ethan's fractured worlds. Then came the day Ethan's company faced a crisis. A major investor threatened to pull funding, deadlines collided, and for the first time in his career, Ethan felt powerless. He was on edge, snappish, distant. Sophie noticed. Claire noticed. That Friday evening, as rain streaked the city's windows, Claire called. Not to talk about school or Sophie's grades but to simply ask, "Would you like to join us tomorrow? We're organizing a volunteer day at the community shelter." Sophie's already signed up to help serve lunch. Exhausted and skeptical, Ethan almost declined. But something in Claire's voice, steady, compassionate, made him pause. The next morning, dressed in casual clothes he barely recognized on himself, he and Sophie spent hours ladling soup, folding clothes, and handing out warm meals to strangers whose smiles radiated gratitude deeper than Ethan had imagined possible. He watched as Sophie chatted easily with other volunteers, as Claire moved gracefully from person to person with humility and joy. It was then Ethan felt it, a profound realization that wealth wasn't measured in stock portfolios or prestigious school names but in moments like this. In community, in compassion, in connection. For years, he'd been chasing security and control, thinking it would shield Sophie from pain. But it was vulnerability and kindness that were stitching them back together. That evening, as they walked home under soft amber streetlights, Sophie slipped her small hand into Ethan's and said quietly, "Daddy, I like this school. And I like Miss Bennett. She makes me feel safe." Ethan squeezed her hand gently. His throat tightened. "I like her too, sophomore." Weeks turned into months. Ethan surprised his board by scaling back his hours, delegating more, prioritizing fewer late-night meetings. He became a fixture at Brookside, attending science fairs, joining parent committees, even coaching a weekend soccer game or two. His once laser-focused life broadened into something richer and more textured. And somewhere along the way, as winter melted into spring, friendship with Claire deepened into something neither of them had anticipated. It was slow, natural, built on shared stories, laughter, mutual respect. Claire never saw him as the CEO who controlled boardrooms. She saw him as Ethan, a father doing his best, a man relearning how to live with an open heart. The emotional climax came one May afternoon when Sophie, standing on stage during Brookside's end-of-year recital, dedicated her poem not to her classmates or her teacher, but to the people who helped me smile again when my heart forgot how. As her clear voice echoed through the auditorium, eyes glistening, Ethan realized just how far they'd come. How a mistake, a simple address mix-up, had rewritten the course of their lives. Later that evening, as Claire and Ethan stood side by side watching Sophie chase fireflies in the dusk, Ethan finally spoke words that had long been blooming in his heart. "You didn't just teach Sophie, Claire. You reminded me what life's really about. You saved both of us." Claire's eyes shimmered, her smile soft and full. "We saved each other, Ethan." Their story didn't end with grand declarations or cinematic gestures. It unfolded in the everyday, in shared breakfasts, school runs, quiet conversations. It blossomed in a community that embraced them, in lessons that kindness was stronger than grief, and that sometimes, life's greatest gifts come wrapped in the packages of our biggest mistakes. And so, Ethan, the man who once thought he had to control everything to keep his daughter safe, learned that letting go, opening his heart, and embracing humanity, in all its messy, beautiful unpredictability, was the surest way to build a life worth living. In the end, it wasn't about the wrong school at all. It was about finding the right people. And that made all the difference.